No, it's light.
You
Oh,
look
okay.
you look
Oh, I
like you
gotta
might be
remind
from
myself.
Middle Africa. I don't know.
Did he say middle?
You look like you might be from Middle Africa. You sure?
I didn't know because when I'm looking at it on the screen, it looks like it's like shadowy.
Oh. All right, I gotta.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, I gotta make sure I get everything lined up because I'm broadcasting, but I got to make sure I'm doing what I'm doing. Shoot. Uh oh. Hold on a
And
minute,
it's a
sis.
little behind.
Yeah, it's gonna have some lag. Hey, how y'all doing out there? Facebook, give us just a minute. We just getting all our technical difficulties lined up. YouTube, Facebook, we're looking forward to this. We want to make sure we get all our people where our people got to be. So, y'all just give me a minute. Screen share. 6. There we go. And then I need to take this output where I'm at. Oh, come on. Turn off my virtual camera. Do I have you right?
Look.
Yeah, I do. What? Oh, it's got you caught looking up.
Yes. How long this been on?
It ain't been on long, but that's why I be telling you, you be doing, you, you gotta find the camera. Find the camera, babe. Find the camera. I got Robin with her tongue stuck
I
out.
know that's right. Please, please take that down.
Why is this thing showing double on here? I gotta do something. Hold on, hold on. I promise you I'm gonna get this right. Uh, mm-mm. Oop, that ain't what I want. Why is this thing doing what it's doing? Oh, I know why. Damn. Ecan. All right, let me see if I got this right. All right. Sis, can I get a mic check with you? Let me see what I
Yes.
got. While you doing your hair. Let me see if I got this right. Yeah. Sis, can I get a mic check? Yeah, it's on there. All right, we good. We good. We good. I think. Let me take this picture in picture here off. Uh, uh,
Yeah.
all right. All right, we are live. We're on Facebook. We are on YouTube. We are going to look at this camera as best we can and not look way up there at you. Welcome tonight to.
We're
I,
on Zoom.
we're on Zoom. Yeah, we're on Zoom, but we're on Facebook. Zoom is not a place.
Right.
It's a tool. So, thank you for joining us tonight. I don't even know if this is a marriage refresh. I guess it's a marriage refresh TV, but it's a little bit of everything. And tonight, and we might have some other special guests drop by, join the round table. But right now, we definitely have our sister who is not afraid to step up in here. And we are unscripted, so you know that's how we roll at Damon Rich Speaks, unscript, live life off script. And we are going to be talking about TD Jakes recently dropped an absolute awesome um, message called Not Many Fathers. And I encourage some people to listen to it and then come in and kind of catch that and listen to it, come in, catch it, and be willing to talk about it, be ready to talk about it. And I got a few people said that they're going to join us. So far, I got my sister here, Miss Yant, and me and my wife just finished it. Hold on, I got somebody I don't recognize say they want to jump in, so we gonna see who they are. Uh-oh. Hold on. Let me make sure now. Hello? No, they're not saying anything. So, I don't think they really meant to join. So I'm gonna take them on up out of here. All right, cool. So, oh, I got a whole bunch of people talking about they want to join. I don't recognize none of these people. Woo! We gonna see what they talking about in a minute. Here's where we're at, right? Cause I know you can get some people who want to really jump in, but they really ain't. Yeah, I can tell this is people spamming. Okay, so we gonna keep moving, and then we'll find who's supposed to be in here with us, who ain't. Anyway, so this thing with TD Jakes, he did a awesome. I'll let y'all tell me what y'all think about the message. I know you listened to it, sis. You finished it up, honey. I've listened to it more than once, and so I'm just trying to figure out who in the world is what y'all think about the message, just in general. Don't go in. But when you first heard it, what was your first kind of thought about it?
You could go ahead, sis. Go ahead and start.
Well, I thought that it was very insightful, and he didn't really say anything that that I wasn't really aware of, but it was just sometimes we need that reminder just to be put, to put it back in front of us.
Right.
But yeah, I thought it was very on point. I think women especially can get something from it, in how you deal with your spouses and raising them boys.
Yes.
Okay.
I agree with you 100%. It was very good, insightful, like you said again. Nothing that you probably hadn't heard before. I do like to listen to things again because even if you've heard it before, it like reminds you, and then you may even get a little extra something from it, or maybe he twisted it a little bit or made it a little plainer or clearer or articulated it a little better than what I've heard it in the past. Some of the things, but it was really good. It was really good. And with that being said,
I don't want to hear that. Yeah, there we go. We being extra now. We being extra. Yeah.
Now, since I will say this, I listened to it probably about 4 or 5 times.
4 or 5 times?
Yes, because I would hear something different. I would hear it differently than I heard the time before. So you were exactly right.
Right. And then when I heard things like this before, I was in a different place. So with growth and with other things, when you hear it again, you be like, oh, aha, and you kind of get the moment that maybe you missed before, or that you was like, I don't know if I agree with, before. Now you be like, okay, I done grew a little bit. I'm a little more whole, so I understand exactly where he's coming from.
Right.
Absolutely. Well
Right.
said.
I really, because there's some parts in there I definitely want to talk about and get with, because he said some stuff that I don't think that people, like, he was really, if women were really paying attention, he was really speaking about the hearts of men, but I also think that he hit a lot that gets to things that we as men sometimes struggle to articulate, and things that we probably are internalized because we struggle to articulate it. And but it was really some hot things that he dropped in there, and I gotta see, now I'm messing up. Y'all, dang it.
I like that he had a panel too, that people were actually able to ask questions, and he answered them right there on the spot and on stage.
Yeah.
I really like that. Because a lot of times you are in the audience or you hear the message, but you don't get to ask those questions.
Yeah, I like that too. I wish there were some other questions that I, wish someone had got to ask.
You're right, I agree. Right. Yeah.
But hey, it was still good. It was
Right.
still good.
Yeah, because you be like, oh, wait a minute, and you're waiting, like, what are they gonna ask or whatever, and not that they weren't good questions. You just had another question to be like, oh, but what about this, or what about that?
Right.
I was like, come on, dig on in there, dig on in there, TD.
The right.
I would tell you, like, there was at least one or two questions from the ladies that I interpreted something underneath their question, and Jake's kind of, because in a way they kind of maybe trying to throw a little shade or get some justification on some stuff, and how he dealt with it very skillfully, where he could have like put them on blast, like, you finna make this about you, and this ain't even about you right now.
What part of it?
This was when they was one or two of the ladies that asked a question, and the way they asked it, one of them he kind of got together. He kind of got it together a little bit in how he responded, but he did it so tactfully that she might not have recognized she's being got together in that particular moment. But yeah, yeah, he one of them he kind of got together a little bit, and I think that was really well done. I hope that we can do something like that, because I really, when people get unafraid of the pandemic, because I just think that it's so vital that we can actually have these free-flowing conversations about relationship. And so I even saw it beyond marriage, because that's where my natural lock is, because I had to go get my notes, because I had wrote a couple of notes down, and I just want to ask this question. And if, if you're on Facebook, you're on YouTube, and you want to legitimately come in, because I had a bunch of people trying to come in, they wasn't really trying to come in. It's that spam type stuff. But if you legitimately want to come in and join us in the conversation, you are more than welcome to join us on Zoom using the Zoom link. And if I recognize you, I'll get you in here. But
see, that's the difference between you and me, because I'd let them come right on in this room.
no, because that's you not knowing technology. Because then what we'll be doggone broadcasting as a porn show. That's the kind of stuff people do. They'll barge into your Zoom meeting, and then have a camera on, and you'll have a porn show being broadcast. Now you up there, woo, let me get him over here. You don't know how to press that button quick enough, and the whole world done seen a whole bunch of stuff you didn't intend.
Thank you. That's why he knows.
Yeah, I paid attention when everybody had to go to Zoom and Teams, and some stuff happened. You get races popping up. Yeah, it was horrible. That's why Zoom gave you a little more control over your security. But anyway, with that being said, I had a couple of things. Here's one quote. I'm gonna ask y'all if you got maybe one quote from the message that maybe just stuck with you, just like really stuck with you. If you got yours, I'll wait for you to give you yours, and then I get mine. You got one? You got a quote that? Yeah, you got a quote, sis, that just.
Yeah, mine was you will never get through the season if you are in your feelings.
God dog it.
Yes, that was one.
Hey,
that was one.
Hey, that's one of my ones. That's one of my quotes. That's one of my quotes. You cannot get.
That was major.
Yes.
I was like, come on now with these feelings.
Right.
Yes.
And that's been major for me for a little bit, because I don't know if you watch Black Love or not, but one of the episodes, which I need to actually finish watching them. I think they might be over now, but we need to go back and watch it. One of the episodes was them talking about feelings, and what is his name? The bishop that plays Greenleaf, the Greenleaf pastor, whatever. He said feelings are not facts, and I was like, whoa. And when you really let that sink in and you think about it, so here lately, a lot of the things that I've been hearing or talking about are those feelings, and they're not being facts. Not that we don't have them and they're not real, and that's not a real emotion, but they're not facts. So when we react or from our feelings or whatever, the things that it causes, or when you're in your feelings or you're in that moment, it can cause damage down the road.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was definitely one of them for me.
Yeah.
One of my mentors, Jerry and Adrian Hendricks, told me, and my spiritual parents, they said feelings are real, but they don't tell you the truth.
Yes.
And it took me the longest time to understand that. And the reason why this sermon stood out to me, like you said, Dane, it can go across, it's beyond marriages. It's
Yes.
in work relationships, it's in starting a business, it's with your parents. Like, them feelings will take you out.
Right. No, they will get you. I made a post the other day, and I was sharing this, because I grew up for a long time bitter with my dad, my biological father. We got a better relationship before he passed away. But I said I was able to forgive my dad when I realized his life journey didn't start with my birth. I was able to forgive him once I realized his life journey. He had a whole lot of stuff that had happened in his life before Damon ever stepped on the scene. And once I recognized that his life journey did not start with my birth, then I had to give him a level of grace and space at that point. And stuff. So,
And I like the young man that Bishop Jakes was talking to about that, because his issue was with his father. But a lot of times you don't realize when you're younger, your parents, or we're busy raising our children or whatever, and so when they become grown, it's a lot of things you just won't get. And our parents used to say it all the time. I don't know if they articulated it well, but we just didn't get until we were grown up.
right.
So he was trying to tell him where the headspace that his father was in, and he was like, oh, okay, I get it now as being a young man, because he didn't understand it when he was young, and he thought, oh, my dad wasn't being transparent, or he wasn't there, or he wasn't sharing this and that and the other. And even I say a lot of times there's certain things that you should talk to kids about, and you can try to explain to them, but they're kids. So that's their mentality is different, so they won't be able to comprehend it completely, or like we do. And then when they get older, when they're grown, I'll tell Deshae, hey, when she was younger, hey, some things that we're going to talk about when you get older, but right now you won't understand,
Right.
but for as you understanding this or that, at this point, let me kind of, tell you or explain to you how I feel about this,
Right.
or even you tell me how you feel about it. And then, you may smile or something like that, because it's like, oh my goodness, bless her heart, that's so cute. But when you get older, baby, I'm going to tell you. Right, you be like, okay, I'm going to tell you or explain to you. And so now, yesterday she just turned 21.
Yeah.
So now we start to have some of those conversations, and she kind of get it, but sometimes it just comes with experience. So until they start to experience certain things, some things they just won't get.
Yeah, and my thing is that so one of my quotes that really popped off is a few that popped off. I can't go through them all. I re-preach the message. Is one of them. It says, "People love seasons, not the person."
Yes.
He talked about people fall in love with that season, so they love that spring and that summer, but boy, that doggone fall in that winter, people, and so I think that that's so important because, like you said, this goes across so many different relationship types. You have to know when people are in love with you and when they're in love with your season. And when they're in love with your season, especially if you're not married, it's like, they seem to love my seasons more than they love me. It's time to go. Hey, this ain't the one for me. But then once you in marriage, you have to figure out how I get through this or communicate that, or are we going to end up in that situation where it's time to go anyway. Right. And so that was the one that got me. But there's another one that says marriage changes with age.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Marriage changes with age.
So true.
Because I think as we mature, girl, there you go.
Okay.
So-
All right.
But you know what I'm saying? The reason that one really kind of stuck with me is I'm not the same person I was when I got married at 22. And now I'm 45. I'm over time, and this does go to that statement that we often make about giving people credit for growth. Sometimes we're still holding each other accountable to the 22-year-old version as opposed to the 45-year-old version. And you're like, am I ever going to get credit for my growth? Marriage changes with age. And so I thought that that was real powerful statement as well. What was
The one for me, you don't have to be perfect, but you need to be present.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was-
Yeah,
Okay.
I like that because a lot of times we do see. I think we get the two mixed up, and so when we're trying to pull some things out of you sometimes, and that's both husband and wife, or in relationships when you're trying to pull something out of somebody, it's not that I want you to be perfect, or I don't know if we tell them or explain that it's not perfection I'm looking for, but for you to be present in what you're doing, you know,
Yes.
to be here and to really show up.
Yes. I have a question. So I wrote down some questions. And I want everybody to answer these truthfully. We in a safe place. We can answer these truthfully. If you can't, just put up your finger, and then I know I ain't expect no answer from you. But before you put up your finger, don't be too quick with that finger. Here's the question I have. And if you reflected on this, if you haven't, how did your relationship with your mom, I'm going to start with mom, impact your other relationships? Whether that's in marriage, I would really like to know about, our intimate relationships, our marriages and dating, and not necessarily even where you're at now, but over the years, if you've had multiple relationships along the way, how did your relationship with your mother impact your relationships? Good or bad?
Well, I
Good
need
or
a
bad?
little clarity first.
Uh-huh.
So our relationship with how our relationship with our mother affected our other relationships.
How did
That
it
was that?
influence? How did it influence it? Like what
Okay.
what good or bad habits, and I like a good and a bad habit, did I take from them that I imported into my relationship that, or it might even be what I perceived as a good or bad habit, but when I got it to my relationship, that chunk didn't work.
Yeah.
How did that work? What was that thing?
No smoke and mirrors.
No smoke and mirrors.
Okay.
We don't. You want me to go first? You want me to pop off first?
Pop it off.
Okay, I'll pop on first. So
I'm thinking.
I will go with I love my mom. My mom was really, really good to me. My mom was not a perfect person. I think that one of the things that I saw with my mom, I saw her heart being so big towards others that it actually caused me to go the opposite direction because I saw a lot of people kind of abuse that big heart of hers. But I think from a perspective of something that she gave me with from a negative perspective that impacted my marriage and maybe other relationships was how she dealt with money. How she dealt with money showed up in my marriage because I picked up my bad money habits from my mom. And how she dealt with it because at times she was very, very shifty with the money. And sometimes she would be shifty with it. She was never shifty with it for nefarious reason. It was either helping somebody or doing something. It was never really even about her when she was shifty with money. But nonetheless, it's my statement that I've grown to take to now is whether you shot me intentionally or you shot me on purpose, I'm still shot. But if you did it on purpose, I'm going to have a different reaction. I'm going to shoot back than if you did it on accident. You know what I'm saying? But it doesn't change the fact that I got a bullet hole in me at that point.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the things for me that even I still work with and deal with financially or whatever is getting to that better place of kind of getting rid of that, saying, you know what? And Jake's even talked about that a little bit. He's like, he didn't want his parents' marriage because if he had his parents married, him and Sharita wouldn't be married today. So I look at it from that perspective. That was one of the ways that something that I picked up from her that came into my relationships moving forward. So, yeah.
Well, I would say you said a good thing and a bad thing. I would say my mother um, gave a lot of grace to people.
Mm-hmm.
She was very gracious, very gracious.
Mm-hmm.
And so I carried that into my marriage and I think all of my personal relationships, sometimes to a default. All right.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing, I mean, can grace be a default? Okay, okay, let me go. The second thing, and I don't know if this could be bad or good, but I'm gonna probably say it was a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
I did not learn how to properly fight or what a fight truly looked like, and I'm talking about in marriage.
Mm.
So, like, how do you fight for that thing to where you don't damage the other person? Like, I just didn't know what a real fight looked like. How to do it, what it looked like, what should come of it, none of that. So, I ain't know nothing about the fight.
Gotcha. Like, how to fight fair. How to fight fair.
How to fight fair.
Yeah.
Rules of engagement. I did not know the rules of engagement.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. Cool. Hey, how you doing, Prophetess?
Hey. Can she hear us?
You're muted.
Oh.
Hello.
Hey,
Hey.
how are you?
Hello, how are you?
Good. Hi, Robin. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm just listening in. Damon asked a question, and I was like, ooh. Wow.
Fire on. Go ahead. Give your answer.
We just leaving dinner because it's celebrating my husband's birthday, so we just leaving dinner.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't get a chance to participate in listening in to the what you had going on earlier with the TD Jakes message. But re-ask that question again about the relationship with your mother. How did you ask that question?
So what the question was is, what did you bring into your relationships, whether that's your current relationships on the way, into your relationships from your mother? You know, something that maybe negatively impacted your relationship or positively impacted your relationship. Would really like to see both sides of the coin.
Mm-hmm. When you ask that question, immediately, because I'm walking through healing and deliverance at this time in my life right now.
Mm-hmm.
When you ask that question, I immediately think back to the beginning of the year in January, and the Lord spoke to me, and He said to me so plainly. He said to me, the relationship with your mother and your father, your first relationship is with your mother and your father. And he said that relationship with those two people sets the tone for every other relationship that you would have in your life. Mm-hmm. And he said it affected the relationship, including with me. This is what the Lord said to me. Mm-hmm. And I began to look at it, and I began to examine, and the Lord began to show me some things, because I experienced a great deal of rejection, with my mom, all throughout my childhood. She was always a provider. She was always there. I was the eldest child. It was just my brother and myself. And so it took me many years throughout my adult life. And when the Lord spoke that to me, immediately my whole entire life began to flash before my eyes. Mm-hmm. Just everything. Even in my previous marriage, I was married for 22 years. I married at the age of 19, so we were married for 22 years. And because of the rejection, because of the the things that I experienced, and somewhat dealing with the abandonment in the sense of did not have the emotional and mental support from my mom. At this time in my life, because I'm walking through the process of healing from rejection and also self-rejection, because the rejection of my mother caused me to self-reject myself in areas. I mean, I felt like I was always confident, but I was confident in a way that I learned through codependency, whether it was with my codependency with my children. See, a lot of people don't talk about codependency only as it relates to someone that may have an addiction. But even now, I've learned it and still learning that codependency, with my children, just feeling needed and feeling wanted, not feeling that I was good enough, for my mother. Nothing that I could have done or did seemed that it was good enough for her. So it did bleed into all of my other relationships. And when I look back with my first marriage, my mother was so hard on me, as a young girl, even as a young adolescent, even in my teen years, that, wanted to please my mom, wanted to be accepted by her. So it's just like I had to pattern my house, how I ran my house, how I cleaned my house. I have, OCD really bad, that it affected my children. It affected my first marriage at the time, because if I felt the need that my house didn't feel clean, I'm waking everybody up at 2 o'clock in the morning. I remember that vividly, and I'm getting everybody up, and knowing the kids have to go to school, and I got them doing this, and I got them doing that, because my mom was that way with me. She didn't see vacuum lines in the floor. I had to vacuum the floor. She took all dishes out the cupboard. I had to rewash them. So, when the Lord spoke that to me in January, I really, really began to see, and I'm just not getting to the point at this age of my life of understanding the Lord allowed me to where it started from. Why the rejection was so severe towards me is because of the relationship that my father had with me.
And
you know what I mean? So my mom took that out on me.
Yeah, and see, that is, woo, that's because I want to get to that rejection and abandonment part of that, but that's powerful, because that kind of stuff does carry forward. And I can even say that is something that carried forward in my relationships, and I just seem to have this pattern of rejection and abandonment that just kept showing up. Some of it's due to me, some of it wasn't due to me, because it's not always your fault. It wasn't my fault, and Jake's even talked about it. It wasn't my fault that my dad wasn't there. He left my mom, not me. And so he talks about that, and so I really want to deal with and talk about that rejection, because I got a question around that. But I'm gonna let Tamika. You got your part now. You got your answer.
I'm taking all of this in. I did just a minute ago. So for me, so many things. Or different things. I think the one good thing is for me that I took away, because my mom was also caring and sharing, and that I love the way she took a little and made it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then how she not only did that for us, but she offered it to other people. Hey, we don't have a lot, but this is what it is. I remember different people from time to time coming to stay with us, us giving them a place to stay, and we were already crowded in, the house that we were in, but just not feeling a certain kind of way, or saying, hey, we didn't mind moving over and sharing and caring and taking a little bit that we had to give to others and help.
Right.
Some of the bad things, one for me in marriage, giving me her point of view from a single mom of how married people act, or trying to tell me what my husband would want or needed off of something either she thought she knew, or maybe even from her growing up, from her mom or dad. But she was trying to give me all the tools she thought I needed for marriage without being married. And so when I came in with a certain expectation from you, and then I came in not only with a certain expectation, but feeling I had to live up or do things the way she said do them, without even engaging or asking you, hey, you know, because this is new to us. So I came in and be like, okay, so she told me I needed to do this, this, and this, and this to have a good marriage or a happy man or this and that and the other. And then a lot of times she made it not so much about me being able to be vocal and go in. It was also, and I meant she's 80, so it was like old school advice. You needed to do this to keep the man happy. You know, you needed to do this and you needed to do that and all of these things, and you'll have a great household or a happy marriage. And that's not it.
Right.
You know, so
right.
a lot of those things where I thought were positives that I were going in, you know, ahead of the curve, I really wasn't.
Right. I get you on that. And I think that, because see, I heard something interesting from Sister Chantel about rejection from mom, when so often we hear that rejection story from dad. Dad abandoned me. Dad rejected me. And so I think that that's so important, because a lot of times, and he even, I think, brushed on this a little bit, a lot of times dads always get that heavy burden of being the one that failed the relationship, when mom had mom was raggedy and toe up in it too. And I didn't learn that until way later in life, that my mom had her own impacts on my dad and the relationship and things of that nature. But I do want to ask this question. I see my covenant friend Tonya on. Friend, join us if you can. Hit the Zoom link. But I want to ask this question in terms of, have you, because I heard Prophetess Randolph say that she's Prophetess Perry now, right? Is the last name?
Yes.
Yeah. All right, I got to get that thing cleaned up. All right, so Prophetess Perry, and that's even a question I want to ask about taking names. But anyway, that she's doing the work. Where do you feel, first, do you feel that you deal with rejection and abandonment? Which parent did it come from, and where are you at in healing from it? Are you all the way healed, or are you in your process of healing?
Was that directed to me, Elder Rich?
That's to anybody. Like you said, you're on your journey. I'm wondering for everybody else, have they experienced that same thing? Because rejection and abandonment is one of those big things for me. And every day, I'm pulling back a little bit more of that onion. So I wonder if anyone else besides us two are dealing with that and struggling, where you're at in that journey of healing.
I think the first thing, if you go back just a tad bit and you start talking about rejection, I think that rejection needs to be defined. Because people will have one idea of rejection,
Right.
but so like, what really is rejection, and what really does it look like? Because I'm just listening to you all talk, and as it came up for me, when my parents divorced, I was in kindergarten, 6 or 7, right? And my mom was always there, so I would say that she was present, right? But when I think about, well, was I rejected by her? I would always say no, but listening to you, there probably was some rejection there. And I say that because, and I've even done this, when you are in a tumultuous marriage, or you're going through a divorce, or you've just recently been divorced, sometimes you can draw back. So when you start talking about the dad leaves, sometimes the mama leaves too. Not physically,
Right.
but the mother leaves mentally and emotionally. It's a
Check out.
They check out.
Yeah.
Because you, as a woman, like, there's been times where I've just checked out because I'm literally feel like I'm fighting for my own life. So, daughter, I'm here, but please, like, don't knock on my door.
Right.
I'm trying to get my whole life together.
The whole life.
My whole life, okay?
You're
But
right.
you almost get so caught up in that pain and that hurt and just trying to get through day to day that that the mothers leave too. And I think that Jakes didn't talk about that. What he did say that caught my attention was um he was using the example, and he was saying that the women don't know what they need, or they'll have all of these commands or demands on what they need for from the man.
Mm.
And it's like, well, where did you get that from? Because you didn't get that either. Like,
Right. Right.
Right.
and
That's what I was saying.
yeah,
You get that from
yeah,
your
and
mom. Yeah.
yeah, and it came to me. I was like, my mom didn't give me certain things, but I will always tell you, I think a man should do this. I shouldn't wash my car. I shouldn't take out the trash. I shouldn't open my own door. I shouldn't. I shouldn't. I shouldn't. And I remember one time he was like, "Well, how you know what the expectations of what you want? Like, you ain't get all of this at home."
Hmm.
And I was like, "Oh, sir, like, what you talking about?" But when Jake said that, I was
Right.
like, women will project all of this stuff when we've come from a place and a home that we didn't even get that.
Hmm.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So sometimes you project things that you want that is not even realistic, or the things that even matter. And I think for men, he touched on this too. Let your no be no and let your yes be yes.
Yes.
Almost like, just because your wife has an expectation of you, that doesn't mean that you gotta fold.
Oh,
You
that's
know
my
what I'm saying?
woo, that's my other
Okay.
favorite quote. He said,
Okay.
God did not call you to be what your wife wants you to be. He called you to be what he wants you to be.
Yeah. That was a
And
good
that
one.
is a struggle that godly men often struggle with, because you want your wife to be pleased. We can go all the way back. Ooh, I wanna really, I hadn't ever, I teach a lot from Genesis about marriage, but I never really dissected everything that God's poured me. I would love to have a discussion around Genesis. There is so much rich fruit in Genesis about marriage that you don't even realize. But standing there, Adam had a decision. Am I going to be what God wants me to be, or what she wants me to be? And he chose to be what his wife wanted him to be, and here we are, right? So,
Why? And bro, sometimes as wives, we don't even know what we need to be, knowing what we want to be wanted.
Right. True.
but you gonna criticize us for
We
not
will.
doing what you thought you wanted, but you wouldn't know if that's what you really wanted anyway, because you picked that up on TV, you picked it up in the book, you
Yeah.
picked it up on your best friend marriage, who, and they trying to figure it out themselves too. You know what I'm saying? And so,
Right.
something hit me one day, and I know this is gonna sound crazy to y'all, right? So your husband going down the street, and you catch him checking out a woman. How you? That's disrespectful. You checking out a woman, da da da. Now I want you to think about all of the emotion. I mean, like, he really checking her out. I want you to think about all the emotion. I'm finna let y'all in on how men feel. I wish some more brothers was on here could back me up, and at least make sure I get home safely. But I'm finna let y'all in on how men feel.
Tiptoe.
Right? No, I ain't tiptoeing. I'm going bold. I live off script. You have you seen Damon Rich Speaks? He lives off script. So he really checking out. Now I want you to think about all of the emotion, the disrespect in the moment, and all of that, right? Now, fast forward. Man doing his best to provide a home and a roof over your head, and y'all working together. But you always looking at the next house. You always looking at the next vacation. You always looking at the next thing. The same emotion that you feel when he checking out the other woman and wondering why you checking her out that hard, as if you're not enough. That man saying, what I'm providing is not enough.
Wow.
What
That
I'm
makes
providing
sense.
is not enough. We have that same emotion sometimes. What, realtor? What?
Look at my face.
I'm looking at your face. I'm seeing your face. Now, that's hard to swallow, ain't it? Man, I ain't saying
No,
all the
it's
time.
not. It's not.
Okay, okay.
And I think some of that is just in the differences that we think, and we didn't realize that. You know, a lot of times when you don't communicate and you don't realize that, because for us, we don't feel like that's necessarily putting pressure, or that they think we don't think this is good enough because we're looking forward to the next or this or that or bigger or better. a lot of times, and it makes complete sense.
And me and sis was talking the other day, and I made this statement. I said, you know, when you heard me say it, don't send a hungry man into a buffet world, right? And sis said that's the rise of the side chick. Cause because that side chick know how to, like Jake was talking about applauding. Side chicks are programmed to be master applauders. And
Now,
that
this another topic now, cause let me tell y'all these Bama side chicks. Y'all need to, all right.
go ahead. Oh, that's another topic. We need to say that for another one.
We gotta say that one because, like, I understand that side chicks are master applauders, right?
Yes.
But sis, I think that we ain't gonna even go there tonight.
We're
But
not.
We're not. But I will say this. I think there has to be a table, a very open table that women can come and talk because I just want to say something to these side chicks now. I'm trying to tell you.
Ooh, I want to hit that topic, but we won't jump into it right now because
Into it, but listen, you master applauders, like stand on the side of rights and understand your position as a woman, okay? Because at the end of the day, that whole master, it's almost like you guys give, it's almost like you give permission and justification on, like you incite them to be master applauders. I don't
hold
see
on,
us
sis.
being-
Cause see, you finna go in and then you gonna take me with you.
oh,
So
okay.
let's do this.
Look,
Let's do this. Let's do this.
Reel me in
No,
now.
I'm gonna reel you in just a little bit because this is what I'm gonna say. Be ready to talk about it next week. You tell me Tuesday or Wednesday you're gonna be available. Be ready to talk about it next week.
All right,
Yes.
let's stay on not many fathers.
All right. Cause see, I can go some places with you on that because I'm writing a book called oh my goodness, The Layaway Woman. And the layaway woman, I cover a whole bunch of different women type, and I'm almost giving like locker room talk about how men see these different women, how they present. So I'm talking about, I'm writing a whole book about the layaway woman and covering I think it's like 10 different type of women. 10 different type of women.
Well, we'll talk about it next week because then I'm going to counter with a book called The Clearance Rack Woman.
Go ahead. That's fine. So next week, don't be playing because I'm gonna put it on the books.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we gonna make that happen. But to that thing, getting back to that point though, that respect, that appreciation for a man is, and Jakes was hitting on, it's like you've never been applauded for. And it was hard because when he was applauding for that man, I could relate with that man. That could have been me on that stage because I am not good at accepting praise. It actually makes me, I desire it, but I'm also not good at taking it. And when I say I desire it, I ain't talking about desiring it from a vain perspective. But it's hard for me to also accept it because when you ask that question about let's define rejection. Rejection to me is the attempt to give yourself to someone or something, and they say that you're not enough. And it may, and now here's the reality. They're saying what you interpret is they're saying you're not enough. But in reality, they may be saying you're not ready. In reality, they may be saying not right now. But what we will typically interpret it as is you didn't want me. You didn't want me.
And so then he talked about you building up that wall. And it's funny that you said that because I could see you, and you already said this when he was talking to this guy or you were applauding him. He says you don't know how to accept that love or this applause, so let's do it again. And even with doing it a second time, you could see he was trying to receive it a little bit, but it's going to take work. He really still didn't receive it because he didn't know how. And so then for us a lot of times, for women, I'll bring our part in, when you are doing all of that applauding, or you start out and you're applauding and they don't know how to receive that love or those applaud, then you become frustrated, and then that causes a whole nother issue in us. And then for us, then it may turn into rejection. You know what I'm saying?
May.
And I was going to say earlier, at some point, everybody in this world experience rejection in some shape or form, but it's just how you deal with it. Because when we're younger, older, however it is, we deal with rejection, but it's to what extent? And then do you stay there and be like, kind of fall into that category of, I've been rejected, or this is rejection, versus some people just be like, oh, okay, and then they kind of move on.
And see, I'm a master brick welder. I'm a master mason. I can build a wall. Emotionally, I'm a master mason. In terms of, and the thing about it is, and I've shared this, if you've never done it, go take a emotional intelligence quiz, and it'll tell you any of the areas where you may be struggling or whatever. One of my things is I actually have a very, very high emotional IQ. I read emotions well, I interpret emotions well, and those things. Where I am down in my emotional IQ, I'm actually very responsible with my emotions, which was surprising to me. But but where I lack on it is I internalize. And that internalization has a negative impact on me in terms of when it comes to emotion. So I would tell you that, we really do have to sit down and deal with and sit with that rejection part, because rejection made me, in the truest sense of the word, because I was perceived as a black sheep. My granddad didn't really care for me because he didn't like my dad. There was times where my oldest sister was taken from my mom by my grandparent, my granddad for a season to raise her, but he didn't take me, and I don't know why. It may not have been his actual choice. I don't have that part of the story, but the way the story was given to me is he didn't want to take me because I was connected with my dad. I was perceived as the kid that's going to be bad and you're going to end up in jail, blah, 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 blah. So I had all these negative things that were over me, right? And then, so it was like, and I've even said this to my wife, I can't just be me. Like when I get to go home to Carabelle now, sometimes I enjoy myself so much because I don't have to explain who Damon is. I don't have to explain. I'm just me. They know me as Damon, or they know me as Black, or whatever. I'm just me. And I don't have to explain anything. People just get me. I get to be a goofball if that's what I want to be, and they like, that's just Black. Blah, blah, blah. I get to be me. But when you live in a world where you feel like you can't be you, that was, for me, that was built through rejection, because I had become who people would accept and not necessarily who I was.
Yeah.
Anybody want to jump in on that? Y'all ever went through that? Ever experienced? Because rejection.
I agree with that. When I go home to Bartow, I can just be Robin. And I think I don't know if I was talking to you and I shared this. I was talking to somebody. But I was telling them that at home, they don't care if I sell one house or 10 million houses. Like we don't talk about real estate. We don't talk about business. I just be myself. So I can be if I want to be ratchet, if I want to be hood, if I want to be country, I can just be me without the judgment and trying to, you know what I mean, cater, to these people so that their feelings don't get hurt, because of the expectation on what they're expecting from me,
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So I understand wholeheartedly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now we talked about rejection, but we often couple those words together and we talk about abandonment. And so going with your flavor, Robin, who wants to define abandonment? Because I believe in starting from where the definition of a word is. Who wants to define abandonment? Because like I said, for me, rejection is offering yourself and then it not being received. Right? So who wants to define abandonment? Because I think too, to your point earlier, that sometimes abandonment is just casually thrown around, although it is legitimate.
I think that abandonment for me would be when there is an expectation that someone is supposed to um, be there for you,
Mm-hmm.
and whether that's emotionally, physically, mentally, sexually, whatever it is, and they shut you out or just leave.
Mm. Mm.
That's all I got.
Mm. Because that means, based on that definition, it go back to what you said earlier. I can be in the house, but still abandon you. Abandon ain't putting the baby on side the road in a basket with a note,
No, no.
necessarily.
Abandonment is not fulfilling a need or a desire that I have an expectation tied to.
So I'm gonna challenge that definition just a little bit. Is it based on what your expectation is, or is it based on what they are responsible and accountable for? Right. So thinking it like this: if a mother has a child and that mother leaves that child on the side of the road, we say that that mother left that child, abandoned that child. There's a societal expectation that that mom would take care of that child, and when she didn't, she abandoned. That baby didn't even know to have an expectation that mom's going to take care of me, but there's a greater societal expectation. So is abandonment really someone being derelict in their duty, or is it being derelict? Because and the reason I push back on just a little bit or want to dig in it a little bit deeper is because sometimes we have unrealistic expectations, and the person really didn't abandon us. We gave them an expectation that was impossible to meet.
Yes. So you can pretty much eradicate the expectation
Okay.
because if a person doesn't have an expectation, you still can abandon someone.
I'm
Yes.
trying.
Okay. Gotcha. Gotcha. Cause that's why I felt that way with my dad, is because I was like, you had a duty to raise me and you didn't. You had a duty to raise me, a societal duty to raise me, and you didn't. And that's where I felt the abandonment part. What I didn't know is he had no example of raising a son by being raised. So he couldn't either, and I got my example from my stepfather, so I'm able to at least raise my sons. But I realized, and my daughter, but I realized there's still some areas where maybe by definition, I abandoned them, and it isn't even intentional. It's just that I didn't know, because that was a gap for me. That was a gap for me. So that's why I asked that question in that way, and because I want to. One of my fervent prayers is, God, show me how to be more present for my family. Show me how to be more present, and I have to pray that fervently, because even though I had probably the world's greatest father in my stepfather, he was not a very present man. He provided. He taught me a whole lot, but he didn't engage me. I engaged him, and we would engage it, but he didn't really engage me, and so he
But
wasn't
Jake
present.
talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
Talked about that, and so how do y'all really feel about that part of it? Because I get that, and I agree to a certain extent. My mom used to tell me that while she was rearing me, she said I would plant seeds. But so she was pretty much being a farmer, like So she was planting seeds when I was younger, and just imagine, then the fruit tree grows up. Then she can go out there and tend to it. You know what I mean? And prune it and do this and do that. But that was years later. So she would always tell me, and even with my children, I always say, hey, I'm not the stuff that I'm telling you now, I'm not going to see it manifest until in your adult years.
Right.
Yes.
So where you may feel like you're not getting all of me, where I'm not as present, that's because, just like Jake said, hey man, I'm trying to build a legacy. I'm trying to provide. I'm trying to do this. But when you get to a certain age, that's when the real, you know what I'm saying? That's when the real pruning starts to happen. So
Right.
like, do we have the right to feel? I mean, because that can be kind of like, what exactly do people expect from a man? Like, what does that present look like? If he comes home, he's involved in the children's life. Because I hear men say this all the time. Like, well, what else they want? Like, I gotta provide. I come home every night. I go to my children's football games and my daughter ballet, and I'm there for Christmas and I'm there for Thanksgiving. Is it something emotionally that you know what I mean? Like, is there a
Right.
like in the emotional presence?
I,
Go ahead.
I
How
think
much can you really? What do you? I mean, what are we expecting? Like, what do we want?
Right. I think it's a good balance because before, like old school, you would hear mom say, or hey, if they worked and brought home the money, you know what I'm saying? Then you felt like, or you were told they was doing their part or their duty, and then everything else kind of you were in the home and you did. So if they did that, but then through the years, or even for me, I was like, oh, okay, that's cool, but they're not there. Like the one guy I think was saying, hey, well, we didn't get to have many conversations or talk or this and that and the other, and I get it when Jake said, well, I can't work or um, bring home the money and provide if we're gonna stay or have a certain lifestyle, or for you to be able to eat or have a roof over your head. And I get that, but for me, it was the times that you could be. Well, I think you should be present when you can, but the times that you can be present, or go to the games and this and that and the other. And I think that's when it works with the two, or why God intended for the two for us to be the help me, because it helps balance it better. Not saying because I came up in a single parent home, it's just harder when you're the single person and you have to do all of that. So for me, I applaud my mom because she was so drained or worn out, and a lot of times until I became an adult, we didn't understand that she was present as much as she could be, but she had to work. She had to do it all. And so a
Yeah.
lot of times it was hard because it was just draining on her. We come home some days and we're tired, and we may doze off or whatever, and she used to do that. Besides take us to church a lot, we did go to church a lot. It was like it was like, oh my goodness, I felt like I wish she wasn't so tired, or we wanted to talk or interact or whatever, but it was draining because she was trying to do all of those things. So I think for us, a lot of times we want to help kind of take some of that off your plate so you can be more present and not and understand that, hey, we know you have to grind and do this and do that and provide for your family, because that's what you should do. But the times that you do get to be there, that you need to make sure that I'm present. Because a lot of times they'll be there, but they're still not present. You have the phone, you have so many different distractions, and you're doing everything else, and you think, or they think sometimes, because I'm in the house, that I'm actually present. But you're not. That's not what present means,
Yeah.
being
Yeah.
present.
Ooh,
I,
see,
I
that's
think
a
the
whole nother
biggest thing
topic.
is people just need to set. It's. I mean, I think couples, if you're talking about marriage or business partners, I think people should, and this is just maturity talking because I ain't get this before people, okay? But I think that you have to just sit down and determine what works for you in that relationship. Like
Exactly.
define what present is. You know what I mean?
Right.
Right.
So I need for you to be here. I want to watch a movie without the telephones at least once or twice a week. I think the more specific you are in setting that, then I think that some of this stuff is like is I mean, it's not even conversation worthy anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
But people don't sit down and talk. They just start, they have all these expectations and these assumptions and all of this stuff flying around. And because you're trying to look at the Joneses or the Riches or
Right.
please don't be watching the Yants, but the Yants, um, all of these people, when really you need to just sit down.
Right.
Right.
You
Right.
need to just sit down and what does that look like for you
For
and
us.
your house?
Right. Exactly.
For
I,
you and your business partner, or you and your teacher, or whatever. Like,
right.
just yeah, just
I,
be specific and define your own. Define that for you.
I think that's important, and I actually want to ask Prophet Randolph, Perry, because you're newly married again. You say you've gone through went through divorce. Now you're married again. What steps are you taking to develop? Because when you say that, Robin, I hear establish your own rhythm for your house, for that relationship. So, Prophet, what are you doing, you and your husband doing to establish realistic pattern and rhythm for your home as you're growing? Because that becoming one don't happen at the altar. That's that journey.
Right.
That's that journey. So what are some of the things, like maybe two or three things that you're doing to say, you know what, I learned from here, from this. I'm not bringing the baggage of that marriage into this new one, but I am bringing the lessons learned so that I can help set a better rhythm for our home.
Well, first of all, one of the main things that I know that we both have agreed upon is that we will be able to communicate and talk about any and everything. But for me to get to that point, what I come to realize is that I had to learn how to be vulnerable. Vulnerability, the word vulnerability has been looked upon, frowned upon as something disgusting, something nasty, something demeaning, what have you. And so leading up to, when we met and how we met, and now that we're married and coming up to our 1-year anniversary, the main thing is that I wanted to be able to be who I am totally and completely, flaws and all. And he provided a safe place for me to be able to do so. It took me a minute to be able to be vulnerable because, you know, when I look back on it and realize that, when I showed vulnerability before, it got me hurt. It got me wounded. So, you know what I mean? I didn't
Yes.
know, how to really do that. I did not know that I had walls and barriers up. I did not know that I really had them up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so one of the main things, being a new wife, if you will, one of the main things is that being able to communicate. And I still am. My husband is really big on communicating. He feels as though, he believes as though we can talk about any and everything, no
Right.
matter what it looks like,
That's a beautiful thing, lady.
no matter what it looks like, no matter what it seems like, no matter what it feels like, no matter what it smells like. He believes wholeheartedly we're gonna talk about everything. And there is times where I literally shut down, literally. And so I'm learning to not do that, because I'm still embracing the fact that he provides a safe place for me to be vulnerable. He provides a safe place for Chantel to be, who she is, all her ugly parts. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And and that's huge for me. And because I have, I understand that I was a wife before I became a wife.
Mm-hmm.
And so I governed myself as much as I could with the help of the Holy Spirit. I governed myself in that manner, understanding that, I had to assume that position before I became that. And what I mean by that, I took on that mindset. So that caused me to have to govern myself in a way, even in my singleness, leading up to marriage. The first marriage, he wasn't a bad person. It wasn't a bad marriage. We just shouldn't have been married. We were totally unequally yoked. And I understood that, even in his infidelity, I was the wise woman that built my house, but I was also the fool that plucked it down with my bare hands as well. because
Mm.
I am in the process of really learning unlearned behavior, how to unlearn learned behavior.
Right.
I did not have the
No,
model
don't
of
say that.
marriage. My mom was not married to my dad. My dad was very abusive. My mom married my stepdad, and they were married 25, 26 years. And so, but it was abusive. It was abuse in that marriage, but my stepdad was my safe haven because he protected me. And I know I kind of diverted a little bit, but the main thing, going back to your question, some of the things that my husband and I are doing is that, of course, we communicate. Of course, we pray. You know what I mean? And I'm just amazed at the fact that I raised my children in a two-parent home, but my ex-husband was he did just as much damage as a father that was not present, because he was present, but he was so disconnected. He was not engaged. I just had a conversation with my youngest son 2 weeks ago, and my youngest son went through some things that I did not know of, but we stood here in my room and he had a conversation with my husband and I, and it brought me to a place of repenting to him. It's not the first time that I repented to my children, but it's the first time that I was able to ask him, tell me what it was like for you through your eyes. You know what I mean? And my first husband, we married and divorced, twice. And so, the thing about it is that my youngest son felt like we shouldn't have been together. It was a time that they got up in age and they were able to vocalize, listen, y'all are just roommates. Y'all don't have to do it for us. We understand. We see what's going on. They didn't see affection. My ex-husband did not know how to be affectionate. He was raised that long as a man paid the bill, he was military. Long as I provide, nobody should not have a problem. And I told him, we are not your dad and your mother. We are not them. You know what I mean? But I became the very thing that I feared, I became.
Right. Gotcha.
The very thing that I feared, I became. And I realized just within the last 9 months maybe, that I really did a disservice to my children and even to myself. And it was hard for me to come to terms with that, due to the fact that, when you experience things with your own parents, you try to do the opposite, but I became an enabler, because I felt like I could give them what was not given to me. My kids and I, we've always had a close relationship. We've always, but it was just always us. I sheltered them. I shielded them, because no one was going to ever do anything to my children. I was going to give them love, and I was going to always be there, and I was going to always be supportive. I was going to always provide. And it just I was the one that showed up to all the games for my oldest son. I had to, he had to see me on the sideline. If
Right.
nobody else did, he had to see me there. His dad was not there, was not present till my twins turned 17. I mean, they've always known their dad, but to be active, he wasn't active till he was 17. And so, with my husband and I, it's totally different, but it's totally different. But I'm changing.
Gotcha.
He's changing.
Right.
Because like I said, I'm in the process of unlearning learned behavior, and it's been an eye opener, and it's been like, my kids are 27, 20, 25, and 24, and it's like, am I too late? To get a handle on things, because you said something when you said that I had to release my mom. I just recently did this in the last couple of months. I just released my mom and I did that within myself, not verbally.
Right.
I had to release her from the expectation that I had. I had to release her, and the Lord just simply told me to stop. You can no longer do the blame game, the pointing of the finger. And I didn't realize it, but until, until I started walking through my healing process, it was beneficial for me to not do that.
Right.
I'm going to accept all the responsibility at this point, meaning that I'm no longer holding a charge to her. You understand? Because as I heal, I will view things differently. You know what I mean? And I don't recall my grandparents being that way with her. She's the baby of the family out of 12 children. And so they was all, from what I remember, could tell, they was always supportive. They was at her beck and call, even in her wrongdoing. And, you know, people would ask me in therapy and different things, did your mom go through any abuse, this, that, and the other? And I can really say no. I just believe that it stemmed from how my father treated my mother. If you look at the dynamic, you know what I'm saying? I was a daddy's girl. My father was murdered back in 2006. As far as I can remember, I was always a daddy's girl. But my dad was very abusive to my mom. And so as I grew up, you know, my grandmother would share certain things with me. And as I grew up, I began to see that my mom is like she had resentment towards me because of how my dad treated me. And she was a woman, and he didn't treat her that way. You understand what I'm saying? And so
Right.
it was taken out of me. So when I look at it that way, now I have a brother who is a splitting image of my dad, and she would worship the ground my brother walked on. You understand what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
No, I got
But
it.
so it's just amazing of how our perception is. It's just amazing of how, you know, how we see things. And as Robert was saying, I understand rejection comes in with different faces. You know what I'm saying? I mean, with rejection, abandonment was attached to it. That was like an offspring, you know, of the rejection for me. You know what I'm saying? Because it was just like I didn't have my mother emotionally. I didn't
Right.
have my mother mentally. You know what I mean? I mean, she was sometimes verbally abusive, emotionally
Right.
abusive. You know what I
Right.
mean? And so, you know,
Yeah.
it's just I'm still going through that process. I'm walking it out to my journey of wholeness. I'm walking out my healing, and as I continue to submit and yield to the hard thing, to the process, it's really challenging because you literally are unlearning learned behavior.
Right. And
So
I think that that's powerful, and like having that safe space is so important. Having that safe space of being able to do that, where you can be safe with your words. And you said something about enabling, and I think that is something that a lot of times, I'll put it this way, I have to give you my evolution on where I started. And this all comes, you know, when the word says don't be novice with the word, this comes from learning and going through it, whatever, and over time. If you come to me and you say, I'm thinking about getting a divorce, and my first thing will be like, nah, we need to figure out how that works, how we try not to do that, right? I am not a proponent of divorce, although I know there are some circumstances that, yeah, y'all ain't need to be together because somebody gonna die, or some, you know, or this is really doing more harm than good, and the children are being wounded, you're being wounded, all of these things. But over time, my growth is that I still am not a proponent of divorce, but I am about educating people about what are you prepared to do for the healing journey if you're going to stay together. And it takes two willing participants. And if you're not going to have two willing participants to do the work, I'm not saying that God won't send you on the journey alone because he wants you to do it his way until he removes, right? But at the same time, God may say, yeah, it's time to exit stage left. I think that one of the important things about, and the reason I bring that up is what I've learned over time, and what we learned in dealing with marriages or whatever, is sometimes we think that staying means accepting the behavior instead of setting boundaries. Because when you don't set boundaries, you do enable. Then you become a willing participant in your own damage.
right.
And there's nothing wrong with setting boundaries and being able to communicate those boundaries. And then the other person has a decision to make.
Right.
The other person has a decision to make. So I think that that's really, really important. in terms of just as we move forward in building stronger marriages, building stronger communities, those type of things. So I want to, because we've been going for a minute, you know, and marriage and relationship, that's my thing. So I can talk about it for hours on end. Um, but we can't tell it all, as the old folks say. I want to maybe close with one more question, and then kind of let everybody give us a brief thought as we leave. Because we're going to be back here next week, and we're going to talk about it. I'm going to go ahead and get that put together and out there, and we'll figure if it's Tuesday or Wednesday. But we're going to talk about the rise of this side chick. And we're going to have that conversation because I think sometimes the side chick gets a bad break. And sis, take that look off your face. Take that look off your face. You couldn't even catch your face. I mean, you couldn't catch your face at all. But I want to make sure we put some context around that and have an open conversation. I would invite some side chicks on and stuff like that, but then that might be a problem. No, I'm teasing. I'm teasing. But to have that conversation. But here's kind of one of my things in the Jakes, and when Jakes was talking, he got to the one lady, and she asked a question, and I forget exactly how she asked the question, but her question was really kind of throwing flowers to herself and low-key bashing the husband. And Jakes kind of told her the first thing you got to do is make sure on your behalf that you lift that man up. Whether he deserve it, whatever, you don't be the person to degrade him to the children. They have to end up seeing that in themselves.
Yeah.
What is the struggle? Because I have a couple of doggone questions, but I ain't going to ask the other one because people ain't going to be able to answer, and then that's just going to cause drama. Anyway.
That's the question.
No, I ain't going to ask that question. What, because I want to know from you as ladies, what do you think men mean by when they're saying that they don't feel like they're respected and appreciated by the woman in their life? What do you think we mean? Because I think a lot of marriages could be healed with some I'm sorry's. With some
That's not the truth. That is not the truth. Okay. Oh my God.
I'm finna mute you.
Oh. Oh my goodness.
I knew I'd get so. Go ahead. What you been?
So you don't agree?
Well, when I say they can be healed with some I'm sorry's, I don't mean that in that, and I'm sorry, but I can tell you, I'm a man. Men in general feel like we don't get sincere apologies from the women in our lives, and that started
Y'all need to
before.
get out y'all feelings. Okay?
No, that started before. Wives, because I admire something that Chantel just said about how she repented to her son. See, that started before wives. Our mothers owed us some apologies that we didn't never get, and so it's a continuation of a cycle. So by the time that woman get us, I'm used to not being apologized with, and then you go to my coping mechanism to deal with not getting the apology. Now we say that and I say this: men apologize with their wallets, women apologize with their pocketbook. And when I say pocketbook, we ain't talking about purses. I'm being real unscripted, right? So, but that men want to feel that apology, that respect, that thing. So when you hear us say that, what does that mean to you? What do you think that means? Go ahead.
Well, I want to say something first. 'Cause
Go ahead,
I'm
Middle
not
Africa.
gonna let this ride. I am not going to let this ride. So first of all, I think that men bring a lot of pain from their mothers to the table.
I think that's
seen
fair.
it a lot of times. And what happens when you get married a lot of times, because that's the closest person to you, then a lot of times you guys come in with that baggage. Jake said everybody has baggage, right? What I've come to learn is if you have a man, because all of us have baggage, if that man can just lay down some of the ground rules of the thing of what he has been hurt with, this takes for the man to be able to go into a vulnerable space, right? Which, brother, come on now, turn back around.
Because
He
Yeah.
asked, right?
I'm gonna be here because I don't know if you want to hear that response. Go ahead.
I do want to hear it
Mm-hmm.
because men, I think have when you have walls as a man and you're not being vulnerable, then an I sorry is not going to help anybody because you have to be in a vulnerable space. And a lot of times the woman doesn't, it's like this, like as a wife, we're the second woman that's hurting you, not the first one.
Mm-mm. You're right. Keep on. You want me to address that?
Yeah,
No.
you can go ahead before I go on, cause see, I have something to say, but I really wanted to answer your question, but
No,
I
go on
wanted
and
to
answer the
see
question.
that
I come back. I come back and talk about the damage that men suffer from their mothers, and I'm gonna break it down for you really, really good, and how it impacts our wife.
Okay, well, what's the question again? Cause now I was finna talk about that.
What when it comes down to respect, and when we say we want that apology, we say we want the respect, we want the appreciation. What do y'all think we mean? Because I'm gonna put some of this on us. I don't know that we're clear in what that looks like for us. Because
okay,
I
'cause
think
I
Jake's
shared
even
that
talked about that a little bit. Is that what is respect for one man is not respect for, like, for one man, his wife walking out the house in yoga pants with a camel toe, that ain't disrespectful to him. Another man, that's a problem. That's disrespectful to me. Right? That is so you have to have those conversations, those boundaries in not in a moment of intense fellowship, but before you ever cross that bridge, right? And so when we say that respect, that appreciation, that apology, what do you think we mean? Because I'm after trying how do we clarify it and get it cleaned up.
Right.
I have not a clue really on what, because it varies from man to man, like you just said.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of times it goes back to where I was starting at. But I think a lot of times men, because you can't get in a vulnerable space to say, hey, I feel like that's disrespectful. You hurt me when you said that. You hurt me when you did this that way. It's almost like we are supposed to read your brain,
Mm-hmm.
and just know that, oh, well, as a man, he's disrespected. Like, what in the world?
Right.
Because I mean, we don't know. We just don't know. Well, let me speak for Robin. Robin just don't know
Okay.
I said
because
all the
it's so different.
right. I think it's communication. You have to communicate that. Just like a lot of times they say we don't communicate certain things, or you have it here and we like to assume that, oh, they should know, and that's the same thing with men. What's disrespectful? Because it could be different, like he said, from man to man. Some of the things we have been told or we think is, like you said, the talking loud, or maybe what we call talking up under his clothes, or embarrassing him, or saying something that is offensive or something like that, as disrespect. But we don't know if you don't tell us what's really disrespectful. And a lot of times we may do this act or act disrespectful, but you don't communicate it. So later you start to act a certain way, and then pout about it, or you never come back to communicate it. And then, as Dr. Eggers talk about, you start that crazy cycle. So you get on this crazy cycle, you don't know how to get off because you're not communicating. And it's like, oh, if that's that disrespected you, let's talk about it. And how do we change it? And then you start to set boundaries from there. And then you see if it was intentional, because a lot of times it's not even intentional. It's just something we did.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Be
So
vulnerable, men. Men, be vulnerable.
and see, let me break this down. Right. One of my favorite quotes is from The Godfather. And he says this, and this is a reality for men that I don't think women understand. He says, women and children can afford to be careless. Men cannot afford to be careless. I say that not because, that's not one of my favorite quotes because I believe that it's 100% accurate, but it is 100% the reality of society. Men showing vulnerability is something that will get us, can, and sometimes end your life by showing vulnerability, and definitely showing vulnerability in the wrong place. I can take you through some examples in the Bible, actual stories in the Bible of men showing. Samson would be one of them. There's another one where the lady, I forget, the king, he went in, he thought he could trust her, went down, he was tired, went to go to sleep, and she put a tent peg through his head. You know what I'm saying? Men really do kind of live, whether it's legitimately live in it or not, live in that world. Now, let me go back to mom. So, and I can speak from my own thing, right? So, my mom, when I was raised, my mom, we were taught not to show our emotions. You were taught that you couldn't cry. You were programmed not to show your emotion from a very young age as a little boy, right? I don't think that's 100% a bad thing, but the way it was done was
the method.
not it. The method was broke us and made us say you can't do that at all, right? So then you come up, and if you have a single mom, you were further taught to take I'm just giving you my life. My mom told me, say, listen, I don't want you out there having sex, but if you're gonna have sex, you need to wear a condom. If you wear a condom, I don't care what that little girl says. She show you a little pill, you won't see her take that pill every day. So now here I am. I can't trust women further, right? So now, even if somebody tells me a thing, I can't really believe it because they might be trying to play gotcha, right? So now I'm in that thing. Now, go further for us as African American men. When a dad was not present, the only way my mom knew how to control me or protect me was to beat me. So now I have to move in silence if I don't want a beating. You wouldn't hear my story. There's some whoopings I got that I earned. Well, I earned them good. But there's some whoopings I got that I did not earn, and my mom would not listen to my side of the story simply because the person that told their side of the story was an adult, and the adult was wrong. So now, why waste my breath communicating with someone who already has a preconceived notion that I'm wrong? Now you take all of that, and we get to marriage, and you say, do away with that. Unprogram that. I'm not your mom. But yet, in your own behaviors, you exemplify some of the behaviors of my mom. You may not pull out a belt, but when I fail the family or I fall short of your expectations, I get berated. You don't know how to hold your tongue. Chantel, you quoted one of them scriptures, one of our favorite scriptures, say a wise woman build a house up, but a foolish one tears it down with her hands, right? And so here it is, I done failed. I have to be perfect, and I think Jake's talked about that a little bit. I have to be perfect, and so now that beating you're giving me with your tongue, that's the belt. That's the belt. So now I am reliving my relationship with my mom through my wife. I'm reliving that relationship with my mom through my wife. And she doesn't understand that her tongue is not a belt that I cowered under as a kid. And I vowed that when I got older that I would never be beat like that again. I vowed when I got older that I'd never be dominated that way again. And yet here's this woman that I said, because men don't just marry any woman in general. That ain't an absolute, but in general. So here I am under the belt, cowering again. And I refuse to cower. I refuse to take this beating again. I got to figure out, now, you know what? My mama beat me. Some of my rebellion was to overcome the fact that I got beat so brutally. You know? So now I'm getting beat again. And I'm not putting this on the women. I'm not putting this on the wives. But I'm giving you into the psychology of what may happen for that man. And now I can't even trust men, because if my dad wasn't around, I can't trust them either. So now I'm in a world where I have no safe place. And men that do not have a safe place become reckless. So
Yeah.
that's what happens. It's not an excuse because you can't hold on to that forever as a man. At some point you have to let that go and make a decision and seek knowledge and wisdom. But if you never get to that place, all of a sudden you see some things and you do wrongfully lay some things at your wife's feet that she didn't earn. But you were your first love, the first woman you loved, and the first woman that abused most black men was their mother.
Yeah.
So
And
guess
then,
why?
and then mothers, you out here, you send these men, boys to us for them to lash us and whip us.
And here's the thing, because I want to say this, and I especially want to say this to black mothers. Y'all raising your sons to be a husband you wouldn't marry.
Now that's the truth, because I got a 23-year-old, and sometimes I just be wanting to slap my own self 3 and 4 times.
Yeah, we do have to
Well,
be
I'm just
careful
saying, now
about
that's a whole nother conversation.
Right.
It is.
When you get into maturity, I look back and I say, man, I sure did that wrong, you know? And it, you know, and you try to, you know, Chantel, I feel you when you say, man, sometimes you feel like is it too late?
Yeah.
I don't subscribe to that. I think it's never too late.
Right.
Because Jesus is a redeemer of time. I've seen it in my own relationship with my parents, my father. So it's never too late, but it is discouraging sometimes when you get to that healing process and you start looking at your own self outside of a husband, outside of a father, outside of a mother, you know. And I said,
Right.
my goodness, that was the one thing I did not want to do. And Jake said that you usually do the thing that you didn't get the most,
Yeah.
and especially, yeah, we gonna have to, man. Let me tell you something. We got a lot to talk about because as a single mother, I started out as a single mother, and then I married, and I had a young boy already. That gets very complicated. It can get very complicated, women, when you do not know how to come down, when you haven't seen how that works, and oof, that blendedness will take you down now.
Because
Don't get me
it's sometimes
started on
that and this is a whole nother sermon series that
and it
Jake.
be us. It be us women. You little women, we gotta rise up. I'm sorry.
No, you good. It's another sermon series that Jake's did, or a sermon he did, and I have to find it. But he said that sometimes, and he talking about Sarita, he said, women, y'all got to learn to just say, your son did this today, I need you to deal with that, and go on. And let him deal with it, and however way he gonna deal with it. If he don't deal with it, you can't get frustrated about it, but you repeatedly say, I am acknowledging this is not my role. This is not my place. That doesn't mean that it's never my place, but I am turning it over. I have talked to so many women, particularly in the blended family situation, that say, in hindsight, they say, the one thing I wish I would have done is turn my sons over sooner to their stepfather, because I realized that he loved them. He was not going to harm them. Even though I may not agree with the approach, I really wish I would have done that way sooner, because I'd have had a different outcome. And yes, my son might have been mad at me for a minute. Yes, my son might have felt like I was abandoning them in that moment. But once they got old enough, they would have understood that mama did the best thing for them. When I got back, when I left for the military and I came back and my mama told me I couldn't come back home, I knew where that message, my mama delivered the message, but my stepdaddy sent it. And I was furious with my mama. But I would tell them my stepfather prepared me. Like when after he retired or was getting ready to retire, probably about 2 years before he died or something, I didn't realize he was preparing me to be the patriarch, where he said, we're going to follow your lead. Do you understand, like, the fear that came over me? Because he was literally handing the torch to me to become the patriarch of the family. And I didn't realize it in that moment until after he died, what he was doing, because he started coming to me for advice and all these different things. And so, but I got the chance to repent to him for things I did and said, coming up as a kid, but I also got to thank him for not letting me come home, because it made me use the tools he put in my tool belt.
And I was just actually talking to somebody this week, and it's hard for us, and that goes to we were talking earlier in the beginning about feelings, and for mothers or women, period, it's hard sometimes to let go, especially of those sons, but both sons and daughters, to their fathers, to their stepfathers, and not just their stepfathers, I was going to say, Robin, but to their actual fathers. You know, sometimes women still have the issue with that, you know, right in the house. This is your biological father, and you sitting there like, no, you're not going to do this, and no, you're not going to do that, and you have to let go. And I'd be like, look, I'll be here for you to have the conversation. It's going to hurt. No, your kid is not going to like it. He's going to try to manipulate you. You know, he's in that age, that teenage or that frame where he knows, hey, if I do this a little bit or pull on mom, hey, she gonna override whatever daddy say, stepdaddy say, granddaddy say, whoever say, so I can get my way. But like you said, that is not good for them. It's enabling them, and then you don't want to be, you don't want to have to give him to somebody like that. You don't want him to have a wife and then be like, apologize to the wife. I'm sorry. This is what I'm giving you.
Yeah.
You know.
You don't want the wife looking side and say, you see what you gave me? You see what you gave me? The wife come in looking at the mama, walk in the house. First time she meet him after they got married. She loved the mother-in-law before that, but after she done lived with him for a couple of months, she walk in there.
I'm gonna say, honey, I did the best that I could.
Or she walk in there and you start apologizing to her.
Right.
Baby, I'm so sorry.
You apologize.
Well, I want to say this before we close out, but all of that goes back. And by the way, I had to apologize, and we'll probably be apologizing for a long time to the biological and the stepdad who stepped in. All right. But the thing is that when you start to really dig into rejection and abandonment, as a mother, sometimes we step in that place because we don't want our children to feel like they're being rejected by us, right?
Right.
And that can become, the waters can become very muddy in that situation, because you know you're trying to do the right thing and the intent is pure. It really is. Where it was for me. Let me speak for myself, and I think for most women it is. But you feel like you're going to damage that child, because then the child is going to feel like they are being rejected by the mother. And especially when you start talking about a blended family, then it's like, you know, you rejecting me over him. And women are like on the fence, you know, like they the scarecrow, you know, they trying to juggle and balance, because a lot of times if you didn't come from a house like that, you just do not know.
Right.
You do not know how to, you know, you don't know how to work through those waters, right?
Right.
And sometimes the women, we take a bad rap because it's like, yeah, y'all be saving them boys and y'all be doing this and you ought to do that. And it's not most of the time that we don't want to, is we don't know how to.
Right.
So that's where it has to be some grace.
Right.
Where your spouse can look beyond what it looks like, not his eye vision right here, right? But that he has a vision from the Holy Spirit to say, hey, you know what? My wife really wants to do the right thing, but she's struggling right here.
Right.
And it has nothing to do with me, because then the men, you should feel rejected by the woman. It's like, man, we be losing all around. It's like your husband gonna feel rejected, your children gonna feel rejected, and women just be in a very particular place. Chantel and Tamika, am I the only one? Because I need y'all to back me up now. It's like,
Right. No, you're not you're not the only.
Like, what do we do?
Right.
And I think women are scared to say that, and I think men don't believe it when women say that. It's like, no, that just sounds like an excuse. No, it's really an internal struggle that as a woman, if I haven't had any training on that, I'm just really trying to keep the car in the middle of the road.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
want to damage or hurt anybody, and I really don't want anybody to feel rejected. And what
Right.
outcome is usually everybody feels rejected,
You
and
know,
it's
well,
bad
you know,
guys.
for me, with me, when I met my first husband, I had already had the twins, and they was just a year old when him and I met. So the beautiful thing in that they were able to grow with him. I was 19 and he was 18 when we married, and right after we married, he went right into the military. So I had already had the twins, so they had the opportunity to grow with him. They grew up with him, and they called him daddy as well. They understood that they had two dads. They had their biological dad, and they had their stepdad. And so he was wonderful with them. And I don't recall that I ever really interfered with him as far as chastising them, due to the fact that they grew up with him, so he was always there. On the flip side, and that's the first blended family, you know what I mean? My stepdad was absolutely amazing and still is. It was my mom that was the bitter one, if you will, that my stepdad was wonderful to. My stepdad was wonderful to my brother and I. And my mom met my stepdad right before I turned 16. And so, um, you know, when my mom and we were old enough to see my mom, some of the things that she would do. You know what I'm saying? Not saying that he was totally innocent, but at the same time, you know what I mean. She was the one that, she would pick a fight, and I'm talking about they had some fights with law enforcement is involved, and this, that, and the other. And that she would start these fires, and then as soon as the police is involved, then she would come to me and my brother. Y'all better not tell the police this and that about your stepdaddy, and blah 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 blah. When you really we want to tell it was you. You got us coming before these
Wow.
courthouse before all these people that you started. But nevertheless, my stepdaddy was wonderful. Here it is now. I'm married. My children are full grown. My husband has two daughters, and I have four children: two boys, three boys, and one girl. My twins accepted him; didn't have a problem at all. My middle son, just a introvert. You know what I'm saying? It took him a minute. You know what I mean? Because they all didn't live. They were all moved out on their own. My middle son was the only one that had moved back home with me when I met my husband. And so, but he was, it took him a minute to warm up to him. My youngest son, like I said, was living on his own as well, and he just flat out he's the vocal one. My youngest son and my daughter, they the vocal one. My youngest son just simply said to us both, listen, I don't know what she want to get remarried for. We good. You know what I mean? She don't need to be remarried. He vocalized that. I don't understand why you have to remarry. You know what I'm saying? I like things the way that it is. you know. And I explained to him, and I was like, "Well, Cordell, you have your own life. You don't live home, and this is that and the other." So he vocalized, and he would not have a conversation. He would not speak to my husband at all. Well, we were dating at the time for a while. He was just totally, well, I don't agree with it. You know what I
Wow.
mean? And I didn't understand why, but at the same time, you know what I'm saying? I had to make that decision. He lived in his own student house. He was in college, and you're doing your own thing. So I could not allow that to ruin, what I'm saying, what I had going on. I guess it was a little bit more easier due to the fact that he was staying on his own, you know what I mean? But as time progressed, it didn't take really long. It took long enough, but it didn't take that long. You understand what I'm saying? He was able to come back, and he apologized to my husband, and he explained that I just felt like, what I'm saying, I didn't want to share my mom anymore. After she left my dad, I didn't feel like why she had to be in another relationship, da 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 da. And so now my youngest son is back home with us, as well as still is my middle son. And they attitudes fluctuate a little bit. And my husband is very, good to them. And it's like and sometimes they make me uncomfortable for my husband. You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes my youngest son, he has a lot of things going on. I mean, he's going to school to be a doctor, but it ain't no excuse. Sometimes he'll half speak, and sometimes I look at him, I don't think he opened his mouth at all. You know what I mean? And I just had a conversation with him on yesterday, and I had dealt with him sternly at the end of the day. At the end of the day, that's my husband. This his house. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's just bottom line. I just have to tell you, we're not going to tiptoe and walk on eggshells. I'm not going to pacify you. Respect is respect. Bottom line, I didn't raise you that way. You understand what I'm saying? And so he feels like he's entitled sometimes, is what I come observe, due to the fact that he has a whole thing that he has against his dad. He has a whole thing that he has against his dad, that within the last year that he was able to vocalize with me. So he don't deal with his dad, at all. But my ex-husband he's a very soft-spoken man. But out of all the children, my ex-husband do not know how to communicate with my youngest son, because my youngest son is one that he's not. None of my children are disrespectful, but they're very vocal. They're very vocal. They're going to tell you how they feel, what they think about a situation, and that's going to be that. You know what I mean? And so his dad does not know how to communicate with him. Never did. Never did know how. And it was just a time where I had to bow out gracefully and told him, listen, that's your son. If he's asking you questions about why this, how you're conducting yourself, you have to deal with him. I'm not in that. They're grown. You communicate with your children, and so my youngest son just don't deal with him. And but my son stood right here 2 weeks ago, and we stood here. He talked to me and my husband for about 3-4 hours, and he just explained certain things. He just, how he felt. And I told him, I always told my children, regardless of what, I always say, you always be respectful. There is never a cause for disrespect. You know what I mean? Because I will pull your coattail on that quickly, when it comes down to that. Even if the other person I know that the other person is out of order, the fact of the matter, like I told him, that's still your dad.
Right.
Regardless of what. But in our blended family, my ex-husband was good with my twins, but it just, my youngest son, he has a problem with his dad. I understand his reasons, you know what I'm saying? In some parts, I try to defend his dad as far as trying to explain to my youngest son, you can't hold him to the law. I said, because what I'm coming to understand is that that's just learned behavior. You know what I mean? It doesn't excuse that. I said, but you have to get to a place where you have to find forgiveness in your heart towards your dad, and that's a whole nother journey.
Right.
That's a whole other process. But I'm really praying for him, because I see where this holds my son up as a young man. You know what I'm saying? I mean, him and my husband gets along. They get along really good. You know what I mean? But it's just, my husband is one of those. He's a man. See, my husband, both of his parents was killed at the same time, so he don't know what it is to be raised with his parents. They were military. They were both killed in a car accident. My husband was the only survivor. So he don't know his parents at all, And so to see how he is as a man, I stand in awe, a lot, just by how he conducts himself, and and different things, and just how he is with my children. But since we have married, his daughters don't have any dealings with him at all, because he's remarried. Their mom died, from cancer 2 years ago. You know what I'm saying? So, we met shortly after that, and they felt like it was just too soon. But, nevertheless, we know God is going to work that out. But it just goes back to, I just look at the relationship with my children, and my heart really aches. It really does, because I can see a lot in them that did I contribute? Did I contribute? Like I told my youngest son, I didn't dot all my I's and crossed all my T's. You know what I mean? And so, you know, I have had conversation with them individually and as well as collectively, before I even, got into a whole other relationship. And I just broke it down and explained some things to them, after Jake divorced and they started moving out and everybody going into that place of having an empty nest syndrome. And I just thought I was not gonna make it. But it was time I had to sit down with them collectively as well as individually. And I had to repent to them. I had to beg their pardon and apologize to them because, just how everything played out. And I wanted to hear from their eyes what they saw. You know what I mean? And when they told me, I was baffled. You know what I mean? Because they felt like I was too passive. They didn't understand that Mama was trying to make the marriage work. I was trying to keep the family together because I felt like that's what I should have done. I felt like that's what they needed. Excuse me. But when they got up in age, because my ex-husband, he raised my twins till they was, 20? And so, but I'm just amazed at a lot of things. And as the Lord leads, I just try to keep that line of communication open with my children because I really believe that all four of them are suffering.
Right.
They are really suffering in ways that it grieves my heart as a mother. And it's just like, I take it to the Lord and I just like, how can I fix them? How can I fix them? And I know that I can't fix them. You know what I mean? To the point, not to the point, where I can't allow it to. I can't bear that. You know what I mean?
Right.
And especially with my youngest son because he's so vocal. You know what I mean? And my daughter is so. She's a good mom, and I see how she is with. She has twins. I see how she is with her twins.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, was I that hard on her? Where she just. You know what I mean?
Right.
I see that. I see her in me.
Right.
Just like I saw my mom in me with them, and I had to pull back.
Right.
I had to pull back when the Lord told me to when they were younger, because like I said, the very thing that I feared of becoming, I became. But
Right.
it took the Lord to know the generational curse is gonna stop here. This will not go on any further.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And just,
Right. No.
my heart beats daily.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think we're gonna have to do like a whole nother episode on just blended families. I've been just looking at some of the comments, really getting into that, and I'm looking at this timer. I'm like, we almost been on here for like almost 2 hours. I didn't even realize we've been on here that long. Oh my Lord. So we definitely going to wrap up right now, but I think both of you ladies in like contributing, and I'm hoping that you'll join us in some future roundtables. We're trying to get into more of, I think those, we're so quick to turn on the TV to Black Love and different things like that because it's celebrities on there, but we know each other, and like I think people are looking for that opportunity to relate to people that they know and can get that story and be able to. So we're looking forward to having some more of these. We're definitely having one next week again, and we're gonna be talking about that all important side chick saving marriages day by day. But we'll get the information out there for sure. But we really appreciate the both of you for being on and giving us 2 hours, almost 2 hours of your time.
Elder Ruth, I just want to say this. I just want to say, you know what I mean? I'm grateful for you and your wife, when I reached out to you, about it, because one thing that I know that I hear the Lord saying to me constantly in different relationships, and even showing me how, the last year or so, going back and repenting because to other people because of my of my own flaws that I had to repent to other people, because the spirit of offense and, all of that is real. But one of the things that I hear, I often hear the Lord say to me, sometimes all it takes is a conversation that needs to be had. And, when you put things out, it draws me because we want healing, but we can't heal when we're not willing to address.
Right.
You can't, if you're not willing to address it, how can healing come forth? And, especially in our culture, you know what I mean? We have taught to be, to sweep things under the rug and, just go on and, don't worry about it. You know what I mean? But, when I look at my children, you know what I'm saying? And they're being, adults now and, starting to have their own children and their own families. And it's just like, how can we bridge the gap? So I'm just grateful for you and your wife in this platform, just having the conversation, having the discussion. I mean, it may not save everybody or whatever, but the thing is that it gets people, to loosen up. You know what I mean? You have to be first to say, you know what? I know they were toxic, but I'm toxic too. You know what I mean? I can't no longer point the finger at this person or that person, mom, dad, or whoever, but I have to assume accountability and responsibility for my own action. You know what I'm saying? But
Right.
just the fact
Right.
having a conversation. There was someone that reached out to me the other night, a couple of nights ago, and I just thought about it today, because she wanted to know, do I know anyone that's doing any type of marriage ministry, any type of counseling, you know what I mean? And she's a young pastor, you know what I mean? And I simply told her, not off the top of my head, but then I thought about you guys and what you guys are doing, and it just amazes me because, people in ministry, they want to focus on your gifts and focus on your gift, but they're not, helping and teaching what it is to be, for us to be wives and what it is for us to be husbands. You understand what I'm saying? We're the tightest two women, that will train up the women. They all are, you know what I mean? So
Right.
I just appreciate you guys for the platform, and it pulls on me because I'm open to learn, you know what I
Right.
mean? And I just believe if you're not teachable, then you're unusable. You know what I mean? And folks just don't want to be challenged nowadays. You know what I'm
That's true.
saying? So I just pray that God would expand this platform and more people will begin to, see, this is when it comes down to things like this, whether it's prayer or something like this that's targeting the families and relationship, this should be packed. This should be packed. You know what I mean?
Right.
But, hey, so I just appreciate you guys for it, just having a dialogue.
Right.
Just being to be able to talk and listen and receive wisdom and glean so we can be better. It's time for us to be better. We have signed on to be bitter, but it's time for us to be better.
Yes.
So I appreciate you
Yes.
all just for the time, the opportunity, and the space on tonight.
Thank you so much.
Thank
We
you.
certainly appreciate it, and we thank you. Keep us covered in prayer because when you're dealing with family, the enemy want to come for that. Sis, any word from you before we get up out of here? I really appreciate you guys a lot, you ladies a lot, for joining us tonight.
Maybe next time some men are joined.
Huh?
Maybe next time some gentlemen.
I'm trying to get the men. The
Yeah,
brothers,
hard.
once we get open up now.
Next week. Join your side chicks next week.
Lord have mercy.
No.
Okay, I'm ready. I'm so ready for that conversation because that's going to be a good one. Well, we thank y'all. We appreciate you. We love you.
Yes,
And
thank
we'll definitely be getting out some information about the next one. Might connect a little bit different, make it a little easier, but we'll see. But until the next time, we really appreciate you and good night.
Yes, y'all, blessings on your night.
All right. Yeah, go finish celebrating your husband now.
He has to get up at 2:30 to go get ready for work. So.
Oh wow.
Oh, okay. Good night.
All right.
Tell me we said happy birthday though.
Yes.
Huh?
Tell him we said happy birthday.
I sure will. He said he just walked in. He said on the next one he's gonna participate because
Okay.
he often asks about you guys. So next one he said he's gonna participate. Robin, I enjoyed you tonight.
Awesome, awesome.
Lady, you look gorgeous. I love the haircut.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
You're rocking
All
that.
right, bye.
Bye bye.